hearing more about those initiatives. Our next speaker is Mr. Ibrahima Diong, United Nations Assistant Secretary General and Director General of the African Risk Capacity Group. Mr. Diong is responsible for defining and executing the strategic vision of the institution and developing strategies and partnerships that will continue to place ARC as a leader in disaster risk management and a true partner to Africa's population and government in alleviating the impact of natural disasters on the continent. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I am delighted to be here despite my jet lag, having flown for many hours from South Africa. I'd like to focus my intervention on a particular topic that's dear to all of us, and that is climate change and the way it's affecting the African continent, as many of us are involved trying to find the solution. I will not say anything that you don't know when I say that Africa contributes less than 4% to greenhouse gases, but yet the continent is certainly suffering from the impact of climate change, what I call the human face of climate change, and that is the drought in the Sahel with the food insecurity affecting a lot of vulnerable communities. That is the tropical cyclone in Madagascar or Mozambique, where I just came from, with a lot of people affected by tropical cyclone Freddy. There's also the flood in South Africa or Niger. All of these disasters have something we call the human face. The most vulnerable people are actually affected by this type of disasters. So the question becomes, do we do business as usual? Where can we do in terms of innovation to make sure we can protect the life of many Africans that are affected by this disaster so we can build the African resilience? Now, many of you know that this type of disasters, when they happen in the past, we wait till it happens and we have humanitarian intervention. In some cases, maybe too late to save lives. And I'm not obviously saying that that's not necessary anymore. We can continue to do humanitarian intervention. But the second option was, how do we innovate? And that's the reason why the African Union decided about 10 years ago, let's create an institution called the African Risk Capacity, entirely dedicated at making sure we help African countries to deal with the type of disasters. What do we do? Three things. The best way to describe it is plan, prepare, and respond to disasters. Planning in the sense that these type of disasters, we live in a world today, if you have access to technology, you can actually anticipate before these disasters happen that help governance to basically decide whether to retain the risk or transfer the risk into insurance market. So therefore, having access to technology is extremely critical in helping African governments to plan properly in dealing with this type of disasters. Second, how do we help African government to prepare themselves? Unfortunately, this type of disasters, if you wait till it happened, any lack of coordination within government obviously lead to weakening the capabilities of African government to respond appropriately. And then the response is that how do we leverage the insurance market by pulling the risk of these African governments and transfer it to the insurance market so you can mobilize additional resources of budget that help government to finance their first response to type of disasters. Now, leadership, it's critical in the sense that the African Union decided to create this institution, but more importantly, they realized they can't do it alone. And thanks to global solidarity, we reached out to the UN, the World Food Program, which basically is actually administrating the African risk capacity. So this is a great example of how the AU and the UN can work together to deliver on behalf of the member states. What I have just described, it's not just a concept. It has been tested. Since our inception up to today, we provided up to $1 billion worth of coverage to African countries, all combined, all disasters combined. Second, we provide up to $130 million of payout to countries. I just came back from Madagascar. We're following the disaster and tropical cyclone Freddy. the government was actually eligible to additional resources to finance the response. But also, the most important part, because of what I just described, we actually protected up to 100 million Africans who are actually exposed to the type of disasters, whereby if the response actually did not come on time, we won't be actually talking about today about the lives of those people and livelihood. So therefore, this is a way of saying, how do you actually complement the work that the UN, that the AU is doing in humanitarian intervention by leveraging innovation to the insurance market so you can actually provide resources. Now, let me end by saying 3 messages that are extremely important to make sure this type of initiative actually gets stronger, but also rolled up. Number 1, today we have 25 member states. Our intention is to make sure the entire African continent join this initiative to become an African initiative as opposed to just 35 member states. And that's why the leadership of the AU is extremely critical, and I'm delighted to see the AU representative here, present in this meeting. So membership drive is going to be a priority. Second, how do we diversify our product offering? The disasters in the African continent is not just about drought, it's also tropical cyclone, it's flood, it's other type of disasters. How do we make sure the disaster support that we provide to our member states cover as many disasters as possible so we can be relevant to the member state as well? Third, as the Secretary General mentioned many times, access to technology is extremely critical in modeling the risk and making sure African policymakers can actually make decisions. So therefore, I am delighted to hear a part of the COP28, 27 discussions is to make sure that technology is actually accessible to African countries so that we can at least help them beef up their capabilities in modeling their risk and taking decisions. Last but not least, there's a huge discussion taking place about loss and damages, whereby at COP28 coming up in Dubai, we're in big conversations. How do we put together a huge fund whereby at time of disasters, that fund is actually held to compensate the Africans who are exposed to disasters. I'm hoping when that fund is available, we will leverage the existing institution like ours to make sure we can provide the necessary support in making sure we build a resilient Africa vis-a-vis climate change so no one is left behind. Thank you.
Thank you very much for Mr. Diong. That gives us some food for thought and for some action as well, I think, as a result of this meeting in terms of the membership.